Good morning and welcome to Vlogmas Day 4. Today I'm going to do a roundup of the projects that I've been working on for the past week, much like a regular podcast. I'm going to brag about my finished objects. I am going to talk you through my whips, show what I've been doing to them. Usually, I always try to finish off any whips in November so that I have a clean slate in December. I didn't do that this year. This year, I have the joy of finishing up some whips during the month of December. And yeah, I have finished actually 2 of the projects that I brought with me into the month. The first is my CDCO 23, my Christmas Day cast on from last year. I first knit this version in spring. I knit it as a short sleeve t-shirt using a single strand of Holst Super Soft, which gives a very light material, but not too drapey. So if I stand up so that you can see it, you can see it's not super drapey. It is just light and beautiful. And I really love the fabric that I created with just a single strand of Holst Super Soft. I did wear this a ton in the spring and in parts of the summer, but I decided in the fall that I wanted long sleeves so that I could keep wearing it. So I picked out the bind-offs that I made, and I continued this 1x1 twisted ribbing that is on the sleeves. And that was a chore. I mean, it's, yeah. Usually, I love being on Sleeve Island. I think it's a lot of fun to knit the sleeves. They're so simple, easy, and quick. But 1x1 twisted rib on small needles was definitely not my favorite. So I decided to try to see if I would like 3/4 length sleeves. And you know what? I do. I like it. I am loving it. I always tend to push up my sleeves, so these are actually the perfect length for me. As I was working on the sweater anyway, I also decided to just make the ribbing on the body a little bit longer. I think I only added 1 or 2 centimeters just to make it a little tiny bit longer. But yeah, I finished it, I blocked it, I love it. As you can see, it creates a fold up here at the neckline. I like the fold, I think it's kind of elegant. If you use a heavier yarn, the short rows that are built into this pattern will prevent this fold. Then the fabric is going to pull down like this, and you won't have the fold. But I actually love the fold. As I said, I think it looks kind of elegant. So that was the first thing that I finished. The other thing that I finished, I only finished it last night, so it is still drying, and I'm gonna bring you over so I can talk you through my festive yoke cardigan. So here she is, my festive yoke cardigan, drying on the dining table because obviously I don't have blocking mats down here. It is perfect. It is exactly how I want it. It is relatively short with loads of positive ease, or not loads, but some positive ease in the body, and fitted sleeves. And as you can see, I am creating buttonholes as it is drying. This is the lazy way to do a buttonhole. You simply take your button, push it halfway through where you want the buttonhole, and you allow it to dry. When I take the buttons out, when the sweater is completely dry, there's going to be a usable buttonhole. Of course, I could go ahead and seam around the hole just to keep it in place, but I don't think I could be bothered to do that. This is, as I said, the Festive Yoke cardigan. It's a pattern by Skein Knits, and it's a marvelous pattern. She gives you this basic cardigan pattern, and then she includes loads of charts with some very traditional Norwegian colorwork patterns, and also a lot of very festive colorwork patterns like reindeer and Christmas trees and all the good stuff. I did go for the very traditional Nordic patterns, but I am sure that there's another Festive Yoke cardigan in my life where I will change the colors around. I will use the red as the main color, the brown as the contrasting color, and then do all of the very, very festive charts. I have made a lot of modifications to this. First of all, I had to take a good look at my gauge because I am using a much heavier yarn than recommended in the pattern. I'm using some Drops Air, which is a blow yarn. It fills up. I will typically with Drops Air get 17 to 18 stitches per 10 centimeters, and this time I got 18. I think in the pattern you have 23 stitches or something like that. So I had to do a little bit of math to figure out what size to pick. I simply measured on an existing cardigan how many centimeters do I want on the widest part, how many stitches would that be with my gauge. Then I went into the pattern to check which size to knit, and I honestly don't remember, but there's the principle. I also made some changes to the neckline and the button band. In the pattern, you work the neckline and then you steek it, and then you add the button band all the way up from here and all the way down over the body, and then you knit it this way, knit it out. I prefer the look of a ribbing that goes this way, like vertically up the sweater, and I also prefer that that the neckline continues down into the button band rather than the neckline stopping and then the button band being added. So what I did was I knit the neckline flat, knitted back and forth on my needles, and I did cast on some extra stitches, 7 maybe, in both sides. Then when I went into the yoke per se, I started knitting in the round, and the extra stitches that I had cast on, I placed on stitch holders so that later, after I finished the body, I could pick up stitches all the way up here. I did that before steeking. I picked up all the stitches up here, and then I could use the stitches from the neckline to knit the button band all the way down and just knitting it together with the picked up stitches. I did steek it before knitting the button bands, but I always pick up stitches before steeking just to avoid any pulling on the fabric. I secured it before steeking just by crocheting a simple line of crochet stitches, and then I just cut between those. I crocheted on one side and on the other side, I choose one leg from one stitch and one leg from another stitch. So if we go really close here, we can see that this is a stitch. This is one leg of a stitch. This is the other leg of a stitch. So I would crochet over one leg of one stitch and one leg of another stitch. I do that all the way up and all the way down. And then in between those two rows of crochet, I just cut. And I am sure there's not going to be any problem. As I said, it is a blow yarn. So the little fibers are going to stick out of the tube when I cut it, and they're going to felt together. But also the crochet reinforcement, in my experience, is more than enough when you're working with a yarn that is willing to felt just a little bit. When I worked the body, I abandoned the pattern because I have my wishes for how I want a body to look. I want it to have a few decreases along the side. I wanted to have some short rows in the back just for a better fit so that the cardigan just doesn't tilt, just doesn't ride up in the back. So and also the sleeves, when I was knitting sleeve number 1, I tried it on all the time. I did my decreases. I placed a stitch marker every time, and then I just replicated it on the other sleeve. So this one fits me perfectly, and I am so excited to wear it. A third whip that I brought into December with me is my Pistvik scarf, a pattern by my friend Ina. And yeah, I am loving it. It's genius. Since we last spoke, when I recorded the last podcast of the year, I was here. So I have been doing just a little stripy section. It is growing. It's not growing as fast as it could have if I had prioritized working on it more. But now it is actually my only simple stockinette stitch project. So I do see myself giving this one a lot of love in the coming days. In this pattern, Ina talks about color theory. She talks about a concept where you place your stripes in groups, which will make the eye see a grouping of stripes as one section, one stripe, so to speak. And I have been working with that concept. I really like how it's working out. I am using the leftover Knit Picks Wool of the Andes. I knit a Christmas cactus cardigan out of this, and I had 1.5 ball left over, which is just enough to make this scarf. When I combine it with a lot of red, pink, brownish and golden scraps and leftovers. So I am going to be painting with color, and I am going to be knitting away on this scarf. But definitely my main project this week has been my Advent blanket. And it has grown. My goodness, it has grown. Last night I added 5 new hexes to the blanket. This one with the stitch marker was the yarn that was in my Advent. And then I just added some other hexes just to fill it out, because this was originally worked as stripes of hexes, but then for some reason I added a block on December 1st. So I have been working on filling out this block. Now I am, ready to continue with stripes, which is probably gonna be easier. I have made quite a lot of modifications to this pattern. This is the Summer Fade Hexie by Mallory Crawl, and I have made some modifications to it. I am gonna link to a Ravelry page where Nitty Natty describes the modifications that she is making. I am taking out even more stitches than she is, but you will get the idea. I'm really unsure about how much to say about how I'm working up these hexies because it is a paid-for pattern. I have also changed the join as you go. I'm not joining as I go. I am seaming these hexies together. I am using the back loop on the hexies to seam them together, and I like the effect of a border. Like the front loop is gonna create sort of a border around each hexie. I just find it easier. Joining as you go, it just seems very fiddly to me. The method that is in this pattern is the prettiest method that I have ever seen, but I find it too fiddly. So I am just attaching these, and actually during this week I have discovered that a light steam blocking is gonna be enough. When I'm working the hexies, they look something like this. This is the hexie of today. I didn't finish it, as you can see, but this is more or less how they look like. Depending on the quality of yarn, this is what I have to work with. So in the beginning, I was wet blocking all of the hexies, and of course, it takes some time to wet block, not to wet block, it takes some time for them to then dry up. And I would have like a handful of hexies to begin the next morning with, then seaming those to the blanket. And that was kind of annoying. I wanted to have a smoother process where I would work up a hexie and then I would attach it right away. But I figured out that a steam block is going to do the trick. One of you gave me that excellent advice to use a pair of thongs when I am steam blocking these. I burned my finger. Steam is hot. Who would have known? But yeah, thank you for that advice. I did that yesterday and it works like a charm. So what I am doing is I'm working up these hexies and then I am steam blocking them and attaching them to the blanket. What more? Oh yeah, one more thing to say about the blanket. In the pattern, you just finish it off with these zigzag edges. And I like the zigzag edge on the side. But if you look down here, this would be the finishing or the beginning of the blanket. I think that's too much. So I have worked up some half hexies. I did that by working the first round of the pattern. And then from the second round, I would only work over half of the stitches plus one. And I would work back and forth until I had half a hexie and then attach that. At the end, there is instructions to do a border all around the blanket, which for sure I'm going to do. That's also going to help even out these half hexies because they're uneven for sure. But I'm confident that once I worked a border all around it, it's gonna even out. So yeah, I am enjoying this a lot. I am enjoying all of the colors. I am enjoying working up the hexes, and I am looking forward to adding more hexes to my blanket. One more thing I want to talk about is this little star. And let's see if I can show you this. Isn't that adorable? Last night I was at my computer, I was watching some Vlogmases, and then I saw that Hooked by Robin had published a tutorial for this star. It is worked in one round. It is super quick to web up. I didn't use the perfect yarn. I used an alpaca yarn. I think it would be much cleaner looking if you use a merino, which is what I'm gonna be trying to do later. But yeah, one thing that did strike me as I was watching her tutorial was that she was doing the magic ring for starting a crochet project different than me. She was only using one strand of yarn to crochet around. I always use 2 strands of yarn to crochet around just because I want to make sure that it'll last. That I don't know how much pressure is really on this beginning circle, but yeah, I did videotape myself when I was starting this hexie of today, and on that little clip you will be able to see how I am crocheting over 2 strands of yarn when I do my magic circle. So I'm just gonna add that video now. That was it for my projects for this week. I have had quite a lot of knitting and crochet time, and I have enjoyed it a lot. Now I think that we're probably gonna go for a little walk. It is a kind of a gloomy day. The sky is beautiful. It is gray, and every imaginable gray ever. It's beautiful. I love my grays. But I am gonna pop in later just to let you know what we're gonna be up to today. So see you later.